Welcome to Construction Genius. My guest today is Les O'Hara. Les is a former Division I football athlete. In fact, a couple of his sons went to Sac State right down the road from me and had tremendous success helping Sac State go from a really dormant program to kicking some ass in FSB for a number of years. And Les and I have a great conversation about how to run a successful construction company. And the good news is Les knows exactly what he's talking about. He's built many different businesses, including construction companies. He is also a coach, an entrepreneur, a visionary. And we get very practical about understanding yourself, understanding the people that work for you, using time blocks to be more effective, how to focus in on what you do well, understanding what you don't do well, accepting that, and finding people who can fill in the gaps where you fall short so that you can build a powerhouse business. We have a very practical, straightforward conversation. I know you're going to enjoy it. Thank you for listening to Construction Genius today. This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership. Les, welcome to Construction Genius.
Honored to be here, Eric.
Yeah, thank you for joining me. I'm excited to have you on because I know you have a history that goes back to your athletic background. And I really want to dive into that because you've built a business in construction. You have that athletic background. Tell us a little bit about that background and how it influenced you as you got into business and began to grow your company.
Yeah, so right after college, I threw myself into the world of sales, specifically financial products, insurance sales, the hardest you can do, cold calling. And really cut my teeth on that business of salesmanship. But we had our first child and ran out of money. And I had to call my dad, who was a former police lieutenant in Chicago, always had a roofing business. So my wife and I, we both played athletics in Minnesota. We loved the area. We had so many connections, but we said, let's just go to Chicago for a year. So I asked Dad for a job, and I basically took over sales, and really all of those skill sets that I learned, he didn't have. He wasn't a business person. He was great at people, as you can imagine a policeman is. So what I realized was now we grew very fast. We went from 600,000 to 6 million in under 5 years. And neither him or I, we weren't business people. So I didn't have a business degree, but we had street smarts. So I didn't know what I didn't know. And I needed a great mentorship and accountability and leadership that just wasn't going to happen naturally for me. So what I was able to do was take now some of the great concepts that I just had been infused with me with a major college football program and started applying those same principles to the construction business. And that's what I think was one of the big factors of our success.
Okay. And where did you go to college?
University of Minnesota.
Okay, great. So you're playing D1 football there, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Let's talk about that a little bit because I know many people who are listening right now are sports fans. I'm a sports fan. I coach sports, all that kind of stuff. And so we know that there's some very strong parallels between sports and business team building. Give me an idea of a couple of the things that you were able to immediately apply in business that you learned as an athlete.
Great question. There's so many. And I'll just start maybe riffing on some and you and I can
do so. Yeah. Excellent.
One of the first things that you would be amazed at in a Division I, let's call it football program, is the practices run like clockwork. So what I mean by that is there's timers out on the practice field and they go in 5-minute increments. And every 5 minutes, the coaching staff have already met and have planned out the exact practice and what's going to go on during those same 5 minutes. So where that applies in the business world is a couple of things. One is your calendar, your time management as the leader of the business has to be structured and detailed and accounted for. And as I coach high performance entrepreneurs, you're never going to get into the 5-minute block of time. The best even that I do is in 15-minute blocks of time. I try to, if you looked at my calendar on a good day, I'm dialing in a lot of those smaller tasks. But if you're the owner of a construction company and you don't know how you're planning those hour blocks of time and getting the exact stuff that you need to do to move this business, this organization, the sports team forward, you're really behind your competitors that are doing that.
Okay, can we talk a little bit more then about time blocking specifically? And I want you to address specifically the owners of the construction businesses. In your experience, what is the perfect length of time when it comes to putting aside a time block?
So if I could get an owner to, at the very least, have a undistracted, undisturbed, phones off 90-minute block per day of working on that high leverage activity that is going to move the business forward. And quite frankly, a lot of times that 90-minute block, undistracted, is actually just working on the proposals or estimates of a large nature that can turn into sales. So you've heard of that concept. We have, Eric, where, it's that jar and then the person puts in the big rocks, then he puts in the small rocks, then he puts in the sand, then he puts in the water. So the concept is for the owner is if he doesn't put in the big rock, it's never going to get scheduled. And so it's that 90-minute block. After that, it's if you can do things on a 60-minute basis, have 1-hour blocks of time, and carve those out for the specific needs that you as the leader of the company are going to need to do, that's going to make all the difference.
So let me ask you this then. With a 90-minute block of time, I heard you say work on proposals and things like that. What are some of the other activities that need to be focused on? And what you're saying is carve out one 90-minute block of time per day, which is, I like that. What else should we be working on in that 90-minute block?
One of those 90-minute blocks could also be your leadership team. We call it, EOS and that methodology of level 10. That's what I also teach. You need to have the 90-minute with your executive team moving the big rocks forward.
And that's once a week?
That's once a week, for sure. But if you as the owner, I like coaching the CEO, the owner of the construction company. I believe he has 3 main responsibilities. One, if he wants to have a company that he's going to grow and scale and not have to work in the business. One is he's ultimately in charge of the economic engine, the marketing, the leads. How are the leads going to come in? How are they coming in steady? What is that ROI that if he puts X dollars in, Y sales are going to be out on the end result? He can't delegate that out. He can have outside vendors, but that's a 90-minute block of time. Working on lead gen. It could be lead magnets. It could be his website. It could be pay-per-click vendor meetings. He needs to dial in those leads. That's one 90-minute block. So let's say he gets to the next day. What's another block that he should be spending time on? Well, if you're growing, if you want to build this high-performance organization and have a business that you own, not work into, you need to recruit and hire A players. It's going to be that person that replaces you out as the estimator. It's going to be a project manager. It's going to be the office manager. I like teaching the chief of staff role. You're going to have to find great subs.
Hold on a second. You use chief of staff. What do you mean by chief of staff, please?
So many of us owners, Eric, are the visionaries. We're the idea guys. And what happens is we're not the executors. So what I always needed in my life, almost every one of my companies, I find this chief of staff that could be the one person that I'm speaking with, that I'm telling my ideas, that I am sharing the concerns and the problems. And then they're working through this staff of 3 to 4 mid-level management. Your production manager, your sales manager, your branding, marketing, CMO, and then your CFO, finance, running that. I really love that model. Now that just resonates with me because I know what my strengths and weaknesses are. And one of them is keeping tabs of all of the many ideas that I have rolling out there at any given time.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I was chatting with one of my coaching clients yesterday, and it's a husband and wife team. And the husband is just a brilliant visionary, but he is really uncomfortable with the execution part, whereas his wife is just dialed in on the execution part. And it's so interesting because if you are a visionary, you can sometimes feel guilty that you're not very good at the execution part, and spend years struggling and struggling and struggling instead of doing what you're saying is like, hold on a second, this is not your gig. You do what you do, and you need to bring someone else in to do that execution piece.
It's so eye-opening, and it's so freeing too, as the visionary, to, wow, you mean I could really excel in my business if I focus in on what God has given me the talents for. And he's given me the talents for ideas and visions and problem solving, but not for the maybe hand-to-hand management and the execution.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so important because I think sometimes business owners feel guilty that they don't even want to do that stuff. And they think they feel guilty about that instead of just saying, okay, accept it, find someone else who can do it, pay them the money that they're worth, and then focus on what you do well.
Yeah, amen to that.
So let's talk a little bit more then about these time blocks. We've got a time block for meeting with your leadership team, a time block for doing marketing and sales, a time block for recruiting. What other time blocks might I have?
And really the next one is holding those people that you have hired and brought into the team accountable for the results that you want. So as a visionary, that's some of the hard part, but that's why you brought them on. And what I've failed miserably in the past is giving that feedback, that hard discussions with this team that you're bringing on. I usually would hire people and just expect them to get me, to get the company. But our pastor at Willow Creek Church here for many years was Bill Hybels, and his great leadership summit that he would put on, one of the mantras that he just drilled in my head was vision leaks. And so what that tells me and taught me was, no matter what my vision is, and this is where we're going, team, and let's go win the Super Bowl, that leaks over time as you're in the trenches, fighting weekly, daily. So to be able to get with that person and just connect with them, is everything going good? Are you fulfilled with this job? How are you doing? How can I support you? If I had to go back to less 30 years ago, that's one tool that I wish I had a coach like you, Eric, that would say, coach me on that, hold me accountable, that I am building into the people, because I was this rah-rah coach. Just listen to me. This is where we're going. But that doesn't work nowadays.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about accountability. What are the most effective ways for someone to hold other people accountable? You have a particular framework that you use with people, you encourage people to use. What would you say are some good ways for that to happen?
I think it really starts on the front end when you bring them on, is really having a stellar job description with the deliverables that you are expecting them to make. And the more that you could turn those deliverables into performance metrics, some KPIs. So 35% gross profit on the production, or 50 leads per week for the business, or 20 social media posts, followers. You know how you can get into very specific KPIs. Now it's really, what is the barrier for them to not achieve those KPIs? And you as the owner have to eliminate those. You have to let them shine. So you recruit a great wide receiver that is unbelievable, and he can catch. You're bringing him on to catch 10 balls a game. You're not throwing him the ball. That's on you, coach. It's not on him. So setting your employees to succeed based off of that initial agreement, here's the job description, here's what we're expecting, and then checking in on that frequently to make sure everyone's aligned and feeling still good about the agreement.
So that's interesting, right? Because I think a lot of people are very uncomfortable holding other folks accountable. But even before you have the conversation or the specific discussion about an issue, if you've done that job description, if they're clear on the deliverables and how they're being measured, and if you've done your job as a leader to remove those barriers to them performing, you then have earned the right, so to speak, to hold them accountable and have that difficult conversation.
Absolutely. And well, one of the other challenges is continuing to earn their trust, that you have their back, that you are going to give them the support. You're not going to just leave them off on an island, that you're going to give them the tools necessary, that you're going to remove those obstacles, distractions from them at having to do the job. And what I also caution the owners about is job description, not leakage, but creep.
Yeah.
Right? You gave them this, but now they're starting to do good. And you as the visionary are like, I'm going to keep dumping this on there. This person does it. And then everything gets watered down. And so you have to be careful of that, that you haven't overloaded them with too much expectations.
So then, having laid out what they're supposed to do and remove the barriers, if they fail to execute, if they fail to achieve their KPIs, walk me through what that accountable conversation looks like when you're actually going to hold someone accountable.
Yeah, I wish I could say that this one I have dialed in, Eric. I'm almost so faulty to this that it's shameful because it's really hard. It's difficult conversations. You know, one of the great books that my wife and I read often is Crucial Conversations. And the other great mantra that I have is confronting the brutal facts. So that from good to great.
Mm-hmm.
So having those conversations is really, really tough. And for me, it's always happened too late in the game. So I guess your audience should learn from my mistakes is that I didn't stay on top of those conversations before it was too late, before the resentment set in with me that this person wasn't achieving and I wasn't coaching. So I call myself a contractor coach, but I am guilty at not coaching my own players well enough on their performance.
So think about a time when you did hold someone accountable. And prior to it, obviously you're not alone. Most of us don't really enjoy accountable conversations. What did you do to put yourself in the right space to be able to have that accountable conversation? How can someone mentally, it's just like when you go onto the field to play the game, there's going to be conflict there. When you're playing football, there's conflict. And so you have to get yourself in the right mindset in order to be able to be on the field and engage in that conflict. So too with accountable conversations, there's that potential of conflict. So how can someone prepare themselves mentally so that they can get into that conversation and do it successfully?
Well, since I have you here with me, I'm going to tap into your expertise and I'm going to give you the two scenarios of my leadership style over the years. And maybe we can have it come up from the discussion. So since all my boys were young, I coached them all in youth sports and had a lot of success. And then also coaching football at the high school level where we had really great success. And I was under the leadership of a great head coach for a number of years. So I was the head coach in the youth, and then I learned how to be an assistant coach. So holding accountability when they are your players in an athletic environment, if you have built a relationship with them and they know and trust that you are for them and that you want their best interest, I would coach my players, and my sons will all say the same thing, so hard because they knew I wanted the best for them and I wanted them to have all the success that they want on that chosen sport. Now, if you weren't a hard charger, it was just, hey, you're out for fun, you didn't really care, then I didn't really care. So I wouldn't coach you as hard. I would just, you're off on your own. So now we take me into the business world, and now it's really not this relationship so much. I never considered myself, I'm the big boss, you guys work for me. I always felt like I'm bringing people in here and said, here's where I'm going. Let's all do this together. So it's more of a peer, let's do this. This is the vision. And coaching them really hard is really hard in the business world. So without hurting feelings, and having these crucial conversations where it could be sensitive, holding people accountable. The best people that have worked for me would come to me as the owner and say, how can I be better? What am I doing wrong? What should I be doing here? I have this problem. This is a solution that I'm thinking of. Those were the people that I could hold accountable and push. But the other people, I wouldn't be pushing them. I would just realize they're not who I thought they were. It would get to the point where it was very obvious at the end. I would have so much resentment that I would just have this meeting. It's not working out and never really giving them a chance to be coached to greatness. As I'm building all these new companies, new teams on there, what would your advice be? How can I stop that mentality in the business world?
Well, it's interesting because you're talking about a group of people who are coming to you wanting to be coached. And that sounds to me like something that's innate in them. They already have it in them. And so that then leads me to think that what you have to work really hard at doing is identifying that, trying to identify that particular trait when you're hiring. And that's not necessarily easy to do because hiring isn't more an art than it is a science. I would be wanting to look at and talk to them when I'm hiring them about the accountable conversations or the accountable structures that they've been in previously. I think that's a lot of the reason why people really do like to recruit folks into their businesses who've been in some sort of sporting environment, because if they've succeeded in any way in athletics, it's because they've been willing to be held accountable to one degree or another. So I think it has something to do with your hiring. And then I do think it has to do with you create that environment where there's an expectation of accountability so that people filter themselves out quickly. Like you just said, identify the people who don't want to be held accountable, and then you have a decision to make, right? So you can't fire everyone right off the bat. You've got projects that you have to build, but you have to note who doesn't want to be held accountable, and then either give them the tools that they need to succeed and see if they can step into a more accountable perspective, or move them down the road at some point.
I like that a lot. I think the front end, seeing examples of where they've been coached hard and where they have elicited coaching from their direct reports or who they're reporting to, I think would be really eye-opening to get on the front end. I really like the former athletes. They just get it inherently.
Yeah, so I think that's why one of the things that you want to do as a construction company owner, whatever town you're in, you want to establish relationships with the high schools and the colleges there and get to know the football coach at the high school or the college, get to know the people who are there. And as a result of that, you may be able to identify some talent that was not obvious and bring them in, and they have the right mindset. And we all know in construction, you can learn the business over a period of time if you have the right mindset and you're willing to be held accountable and you're willing to work hard. That's another perspective that you might want to think in terms of a long-term recruiting strategy.
I like that. In fact, I just recently reached out to the high school coach because I know our industry is lacking with great people. There's such dearth of people to actually do the work in the trades that I thought, hey, let me at least get in there and teach the boys. You don't have to go to college nowadays. You can go work for someone. That 3 or 4 year working for a tradesman and learning the business would be so much more valuable to you in the long term of building your own business than spending 4 years in college learning philosophy.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying my conversation with Les. And a quick plug here for my book, Construction Genius. Effective, hands-on, practical, simple, no BS. Leadership, strategy, sales, and marketing advice for construction companies. One of the things I love about this book is you can take one chapter, you can read it, and you can apply it right away. For instance, we've talked a lot about time blocking here with Les today. And there's a whole chapter in this book that includes time blocking and how to think through what is most important to you so that you can avoid interruptions and distractions that keep you from executing at the highest level. And if you just took that one chapter from Construction Genius, thought about it, and applied it, it would have a tremendous positive impact on you and your business. And the good news is there are actually 12 chapters in the book. And you can take one chapter a month, let's say, take a couple of lessons from each chapter, apply it in your business, and then move on to the next chapter. And that's how you're going to get the most value. Another way to get value is to purchase a copy of the book for you and everyone in your leadership team. And if you purchase 10 or more copies, here's a special offer that you've got to take advantage of. Contact me, Eric@constructiongenius.com. Let me know that you purchased those copies, and I will schedule with you a 1-hour question and answer session via Zoom that includes a bonus leadership training for your team, and we'll get some training done for your organization in that hour slot over Zoom. I normally charge $3,000 for an hour of my time. You'll get it for under $200 if you purchase 10 of these paperbacks at $19.99 each on Amazon. That's called a killer deal. All right, so go out there, get yourself those books, and I know you'll get great value from Construction Genius. And now let's get back to our conversation with Les. Yeah, and that's definitely a route for a lot of people is to understand that we all know in construction, man, what killer opportunities there are. You don't have to have any college debt. You can learn a trade and you don't have to stay in the field the whole time. If you want to, that's great, but you can always work your way into the office. And we all know project managers who have field experience are usually much more effective than just some guy or gal who comes out of college with a degree. You know what I'm saying? So one of the things I'm curious about is as we grow and as human beings, we hopefully begin to get a better understanding of ourselves and how we behave. In your work, what tools have you found useful to understand yourself and other people in terms of the teams that you're building in your businesses?
From that same global leadership summit in past years, we had Marcus Buckingham speak, and it was so eye-opening on his talks on knowing and understanding your specific strength as a person, as a business person. So I went on a quest to not only learn my strengths, so it's now Gallup. Gallup has this great assessment. It's called Strength Finders. I know you've heard of it, Eric. We were chatting on it. But not only everyone in my family has taken it, but anyone that I'm thinking of hiring and also that is working for me, they need to take it because it does such an excellent job of helping you understand what your strengths are and where they should be applied. So, for example, I'll give you my 5 and show you. They do the top 5. There's 34, I believe, strengths. Yes. And I'll show you how it's been a game changer for me and how I build organizations and help other owners build theirs. So my number one strength is activator. So activator teaches you that you like to get things going. If someone has an idea or you have an idea, I'll put it in action. We will get it off of the ground very quickly. So many of my peers and friends and people that I coach, one of the biggest things that I could bring to them is they're a visionary. They have an idea. We're going to get it executed and we're going to figure out how. So this happens to me every day. I get former clients, friends are like, hey, Les, I have this idea. So I started a sports training facility in our area because we didn't have one. So I said, why can't we do it? It took me 2 years, but I figured out partnerships, facility, what you need, business models, and I do that. So one thing I know is that's my number one skill. So that's your superpower. Now, every strength that you have could be a weakness. They call it a shadow weakness, is that the weakness there is I'll get things started, but then I get bored real easy. So I need someone on my team that is that chief of staff, that integrator that's going to take the idea and say, Les, I got it. I'm going to take it the next 20 yards down the field. So I'm great at starting the plays, get us going, and then I need to hand it off. My second skill that has shown up in my life is maximizer. So maximizer likes taking things that are pretty darn good right now and turning them great. So when I work with a company and I know they're pretty good, they have decent systems, they got a nice brand, I like putting the cherry on top. Let's make this a great entity. Let's really build things out. When I coached all these football teams, I like building something great, a dynasty. Let's just have recurring championship seasons and all that's involved there. So that has helped me decide when I'm in the business world, what should I be doing? Should I be doing things on the execution side or more on the influencing and the relational side? And my third skill is a relator. I won't go into all of them, but very good with understanding your business. Let's understand each other on a heart-to-heart and build off of that. So now that I know what my strengths are, I could hire people that are where my weaknesses are. So if you looked at my spreadsheet, my whole teams, every company that I own, the people that are running it, we do the strength finders. So there's 4 quadrants. One is on executing. One is on relationship building. One is on influence. And one is on strategy. So you can't have everyone on your team in 1 or 2 of those buckets. You're trying to even out the organization. So what I found just recently in us building the coaching practice, and we have some complementary services like VA services for construction owners and a really kick-ass CRM for them to keep track of all their pipeline and do SMS and email marketing. What I realized was we have so many people on the team that are strategic. They all are great. We have all these great ideas and here's what we got to get. But we had no one on the team that's great at execution. So here we were having meetings and we're all like, these are great ideas. Let's do this. Let's do this. And we would keep meeting and there's none of the ideas are getting done. Right? What do you do? So I looked at the chart and I said, wow, here it is, guys. We have no one on the execution side of the equation. So who can we bring on the team that's their strength? They love to execute. They love to build systems. They love to solve problems and see it work. And if any owner and his key leadership team would do that exercise, then follow up with a coach. I have a great coach to recommend, a Strength Finders coach, that she can go into an organization and say, oh, okay, you're this, she's that, he's this, and then know how to put everyone in their right places and how to communicate with each other.
Right. So let me ask you about those four quadrants. It's interesting. I think I understand the execution. I think I understand the strategy, kind of the big picture. Tell me about the relationship and the influence. What do those quadrants mean?
Yeah, I'm going to read it specifically because I have it handy right here.
Sure.
So in the influencing realm, it's those who lead by influencing help their team reach a much broader audience. So this is the ones that are going to help grow your social media. They're going to be brand building. People with this strength, they're always selling the team's ideas inside and outside the organization. So these are the people that are great for lunch and learns and meeting realtors and doing the BNI networking groups. And they're also going to be the great rah-rah people inside the team. So when you need someone to take charge, speak up, make sure that the team and the business is heard, look for someone that has that strength. And so we had that covered. The one on relationship building says, those who lead through relationship building, they're the essential glue that holds the team together. So what you and I were just talking about earlier, these are the people that have empathy. That's my wife. She's like her number one is empathy. And that's probably one of my weaknesses. That's probably what makes us great as a partnership, her and I. But without those strengths on a team, the group is simply a composite of individuals. So leaders with the great relationship building strength, they have the unique ability to create teams and organizations that are a much greater than the sum of their parts.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah, you really need that if you're that hard charging entrepreneur that is way in front of people. And you need that person to say, hey, Les, slow down. We're not with you right now. We need to circle the wagons. We need to get more buy-in. We need to be heard. That us visionaries don't have the empathy.
Yep. And then with the strategy, just give us a quick summary of that. I think I know what you mean, but I'd like to hear it from your perspective.
Yeah. So strategy, leaders with great strategic thinking, they're the ones that keep us focused on what could be. So they're seeing all the potential that we have and all of the roadblocks and all of the opportunities. They're constantly absorbing and analyzing information. And then they're helping the team make better decisions. So these people, they're constantly stretching us on what the future could be, what it holds for us if we can get to the promised land.
Okay.
So if you're an owner and you don't have anyone on your team in that realm, you really need to find someone that could help you identify, this is a great strategic plan for you and the organization. This is where you can go. So you can see those four main realms where your top 5 strengths lie in those 4 quadrants is so eye-opening to how you lead this organization to the next level.
Let's say you're hiring someone. What role because let's say I'm hiring like a laborer, right? Or I'm hiring just an office person. Do I send them through some sort of assessment before I hire them, or is it after I hire them? What do you recommend for people to do there?
I do it on the front end. I want to know more of those facts ahead of time. So, for example, let me pull it up again. But if you are needing someone on your team to actually get in the nitty gritty, you're hiring them to build systems and processes or actually execute on some organizational goals, and they don't have any execution strengths in there, it's not going to be a fit, right?
Yep.
Or if you're hiring a chief of staff, for me, the chief of staff, I want that chief of staff to be that rah-rah person that is communicating inside and outside of the organization. If they don't have any of relationship building strengths, and you're hiring them to be the glue that keeps communications and your vision alive downstream, then you realize that's not going to fit. So many of those pieces. Will it be, if I'm hiring a laborer, a worker in the business, I'm probably not using the strength finders. I would say this is for your people that if you thought you're bringing on this worker to be a lead carpenter or potentially a project manager, then I would definitely have that, because then I want to cast their future. I want them to see their strengths and where their strengths can actually be expressed in my business that I'm showing them.
Yep. Okay. Excellent. Excellent. So what would you say over the years are some keys to an individual achieving high performance?
One was, without a doubt, and will make you and me smile, but having a personal coach.
Uh-huh.
So how some people feel like they don't need one or can't get value and an ROI from having a coach that is aligned with your ideas and vision is going to help you get there faster and avoid the roadblocks that we've already faced in our life. So I, as a newbie in business, didn't have that person. Now, what I was blessed with was I found a group of Christian business owners that would meet on a monthly basis. It was an offshoot of a Christian Businessmen's Forum, of which I learned about when I was in insurance sales early on. So the minute that I got into this group of other business owners that were already seasoned and that were going to build into my life, hold me accountable to running the business, to honor God, to make sure that the employees were first and foremost. I didn't have to change the world. I just had to change me and the business and all the people that I could influence through that. That was the genesis of realizing, wow, accountability and wisdom is going to really help me learn this faster than me reading Forbes magazine, Inc. magazine, and every book that I could grab. That was number one. Number two is I found a one-on-one coach, Tom Bardeen, from the E-Myth, and that was an incredible coach that taught me the fundamentals of running a business through systems and processes. And one that he drilled into my head was, you can't run out of money before you do it. So part of my first part of coaching anyone is I need to help them get a cash flow forecasting system up and running of his methodology that he's taught me over these years. So we need to know that we're not going to run out of money. Once you take care of that, so much goodness comes after that. But Eric, the quick answer is, you want to be a high performance CEO, leader of your company. You need someone that is going to coach you hard, that's going to see your blind spots, that's going to get to learn you and your nuances and your weaknesses, and be that a sounding board for you, be that person that's going to push you to be the next evolution of who you need to be to run a truly remarkable organization.
So let's talk about that for a moment. What makes an effective coaching conversation, do you think? So let's assume you have a coach. What makes for that effective conversation?
One thing that I feel is great is empathy and connection. Number one, they need to know that you're for them. Similar to what we talked about earlier, right? The players that I coached really hard, they already knew that I was so for them and I wanted them to become the best that they could be. So you need to make sure that gets covered somewhere in your building blocks of beginning the relationship. It's truly a relationship building. But then the second thing that I think is some of the most powerful ways that I'm able to coach is being direct and saying, meeting. All great coaches, this is amazing. We'll tie it back into the Division I football. Not only did after every game, you broke down the film. Every play was shown again, slow motion, back and forth. Every position, every play that you made was micromanaged from your foot. How did you start with your foot going back to where you put your hand? That gets dialed in. But here's the amazing thing. It's not only on game days, but Every practice was filmed. And then before you went to practice the next day, what did you do? You watched the film of the practice before. And then you also watched your opponent's previous games. So how does that apply to the high performance CEO of a construction company? If you don't have your mentor or your coach saying, let's look at your previous week and show me your calendar of where you spent the time. That's my game. I need to see the game film. Did you carve out that 90-minute block and what did you do in that time? This other time, there's all this gap. There's 2 hours. There's nothing in there. What did you do for that time? Where'd that time go? It's squandered. So you're saying you're not getting the results you want? I'm showing you on game film right here. This is why. You're not time blocking all the things that you need to do. So I'd say if you just did that alone of helping an entrepreneur look at his time management and see how he's spending it, that's a game changer.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things that every leader has to do. And the question that you've got to ask yourself is when you put aside those time blocks, where are the distractions and interruptions coming from that are keeping you from executing in those time blocks?
Yeah, that's funny. So that's one of my keys. You heard the clock go off. It's saying it's 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
That earlier. Every 30 minutes, it's reminding me that time block is up, Les. Yeah, go look at it's great timing that happened, right?
That's interesting.
Yeah. I should remember when I do podcasts, I got to turn that off.
Yeah, I was wondering where that was coming from. I was like, that sounds kind of strange. But I get what you're saying there is because you're conscious then of the time. But what I find with a lot of the folks that I work with, the reason why their time blocks don't work is because they don't communicate to other people that this is my time block. When they do tell people, then they're not diligent enough to say no to people when they come and try and interrupt them. And I think you have to jealously guard those time blocks if they're going to be effective and you're going to be able to spend the time working on your business, not just in your business.
100%, Eric. It's the, what do you call that? The urgency, but it's not important. That's what us owners are facing every day is all of those distractions. And I have Slack and I have emails and I have the phone ringing. Bottom line is you have to put the phone on silent and you also have to put your computer in a do not disturb mode. And you have to tell your staff, hey, I'm going down for 90 minutes. I'll just letting you know.
Yep. Yeah, that's right. Well, that's great, Les. I know we could talk for hours here about all of the different ways that we can be more effective as a leader, but tell us a little bit more about yourself, the work you do, and then how people can get in touch with you.
So it's interesting, Eric. I like to mention that I own a masonry company. We're in 2 states. It's just under $4 million a year on a given year. And the way I run the business, it takes me about 10, 15 hours a week. I put it in on a Monday. I meet with my executive team. We do the level 10 type meeting. I do the cash flow forecast. We know what bills need to be paid. And I'm monitoring the marketing leads and all that's coming in. I say that because I've been able to do that. And what I get to do now is my passion of coaching other contractors on how to have a business similar to that. If they wanted to actually own a business that they don't have to work and put in 50 hours a week, they want to build something that could be a great investment for them and go on and build another one and another one and another one. That's my model. And that's called the contractor huddle. And we have coaching, one-on-one coaching. We have that CRM. We have consulting for the larger companies. We come in, we provide fractional CFO, fractional CMO services, help them with lead gen. Really, I want it to be a great place for a contractor to come and have a trusted fellow contractors that have all been vetted out and have done what they're looking to do.
So tell me, who is your ideal client? Like, who is the contractor? What size are they? How many employees do they have that you really thrive with when you're working with folks?
So I would call it 2 main avatars. The one is that person that finally busted where I was when I took over the family roofing business at 600,000. Maybe they're doing $500,000 at the minimum, but more like 750,000, and they're getting to the $2 to $3 million mark. There's so many of those plateaus that they're hitting, and they're not knowing the building blocks and the fundamentals to get them to the next level.
Yep.
So that's one avatar. We really help those owners to just get the simple 80-20 of systems, cash flows, dialing in the numbers so that they can get to the next level. And then it's the owners that are doing 4 million to 15 million plus. Then it's more of that trusted advisor. I'm more of that You need more of high-level CFO type of work. Let's look in the financials, budgeting. You need a CMO. We need a comprehensive marketing plan. And you need a performance coach, an executive that's really driving you and your leadership team. That's where me and my team come in, and it's more hands-on. Let's really help you find the blind spots.
Excellent, excellent. And how can people get in touch with you, Les?
I really like what everyone's going to on LinkedIn nowadays. I say, connect with me over there. There's a lot of resources on there. It's just Les O'Hara. Look for me there. lesohara.com is another easy way. The Contractor Huddle is the final way. Those are all great ways. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. Tell me that you saw us on Eric's podcast, Construction Genius. I love your podcast. It's something I wish I started and could do, but if you're already doing it at a high level, I'm going to defer to you. Well done. Really admire your practice, your coaching practice, and nothing but great things to say about you and your company that you have built.
I appreciate that, Les. And let me encourage you, if you ever want to start a podcast, just go right ahead, because there's plenty of room for people like yourself who have the experience that you have to really have a tremendous impact. So feel free to think about it, because there's plenty of room for everyone here. So we'll put links in the show notes to all of Les's websites, and you can get in touch with him and also connect with him on LinkedIn. Les, I really appreciate you taking time to talk with me today. Thanks for joining me on Construction Genius.
Eric, thank you. Totally my honor.
Thanks again for listening to Construction Genius, and feel free to go and connect with Les there on LinkedIn and at the other links in the show notes to his various websites. In addition, please give the show a rating or a review wherever you get your podcast. Share this with other people. Give me some feedback. What did you like best about this episode? What, if anything, would you change about it? What questions didn't I ask that you wish I had? Love to get your feedback. Feel free to just reach out to me, eric@constructiongenius.com. I take that feedback very seriously. It really helps me to improve my game through these podcast episodes. Thanks again for listening. We'll catch you on the next one.